Hello and welcome to episode of the Bubbs on Sports podcast. Today is Wednesday, July 26th. Hope everybody's having a good day so far and had a good rest of their day yesterday. We've got a lot to get into today on a Wednesday podcast. A frustrating night last night if you're a New York Yankees fan. I mean, just an abysmal performance at home in front of the Yankee fans and the Met fans. The Yankees absolutely were abysmal. They were pathetic. It was a disaster. Subway Series, and the Yankees don't show up. So last night was another reminder that this Yankee team is going nowhere. Even whatever they do at the deadline, you feel like they're not going anywhere. This team's a joke. They're pathetic. Last night was another example of that. We'll get into that to start off today's show. We'll also get into what the Mets did well last night because it was a good day for the Mets. It was not a good day for the Yankees, but it was a good one for the New York Mets as they dominate 9-3. So we'll get into that to open up today's show. We'll also get into two 2020 draft picks getting paid yesterday and then this morning. Justin Herbert was the first one yesterday, signing a big-time contract extension with the Chargers, and then this morning we got news that Andrew Thomas signs a massive contract with the New York Giants. So the Chargers and the Giants lock up two of their own, and now both teams are fully ready for camp. Herbert will report today to camp with that new extension, and Andrew Thomas and the New York Giants obviously begin camp today. Their first practice, they reported yesterday, today is their first day of practice. So training camp is in full session. Jets have obviously been in training camp for about a week now. Tomorrow will officially mark 1 week since their first practice. Today is their sixth practice. The Giants, yesterday they reported today is their first practice, so training camp is here. Football season is in the air. As much as the baseball has been bad, especially if you're a Yankee fan last night, the football is here, and that hopefully saves us from such a bad baseball season this year, really for both teams. But last night, it was a good win for the New York Mets if you're a Mets fan, and not so much for the Yankees. And we'll start off with that. So last night, Subway Series Game 1. Game 2 will obviously be tonight. Jose Quintana versus Carlos Rodon will be the pitching matchup tonight. And really, this is a big night for the Yankees, because especially if you're Carlos Rodon, because if Carlos Rodon goes out there tonight and absolutely lays an egg like he did against the Angels, he is going to get, and the Rockies for that matter as well, the two outings on the road trip, his first three outings as a Yankee, two of them have been bad. If he goes out there tonight, especially with the way last night went, Yankee fans are going to be restless. They're going to be frustrated. They're going to have a very short temper. They're going to have a very short patience. If the Yankees go out there tonight and fall down early and Rodon isn't pitching well, he is going to hear the loudest boos he's ever heard in his life. And if he talks about this, he shows this big tough guy vibe about him. Well, tonight's the night you got to step up. You just got dominated in your own building last night. You just got dominated your last two times out against two teams that aren't in the playoffs, the Rockies and the Angels, one of which is the worst team in the National League. If you want to go out there tonight and prove that you're $160 million worthy, you got to go out there and show it tonight, and we'll see what Rodon can do. But to last night's performance, I mean, what in the world was that? That was pathetic. You go into the Subway Series, there's a lot of energy, there's a lot of excitement. I don't care how good or bad the two teams are, because it's been a rough year for both teams. We can agree. The Subway Series is always a lot of fun. I don't care how good or bad the teams are. Even when the Mets were bad for a while, really since these last 2 years where the expectation has really changed, it was always a lot of fun. Anytime two teams meet within the city, there's a lot of juice. I will agree there's not much juice when it comes to the Yankees-Red Sox anymore. There just isn't. Although I will tell you, down the stretch, if both teams are fighting for a playoff spot, maybe that juice does come back. But there's always juice for Yankees-Mets every time they meet 4 times a year, obviously 2 times each at Citi Field and then last night at Yankee Stadium. And they split the first time around. But you go into last night's game, and as a Yankee fan, you're sitting there and saying to yourself, bring back the Kansas City Royals. Let's play the Royals again, because we only can beat the Kansas City Royals. And I'll start off with that stat. Max Goodman last night, who does a great job covering the Yankees. I had him on my baseball podcast. Great guy to talk to. Awesome stuff. He tweeted out last night a awesome stat that not an awesome stat in terms from a Yankee standpoint, but encapsulates what the Yankees have done this year against teams outside the Kansas City Royals and the Oakland A's. The two worst teams in baseball. They are 8-1 against the Royals and the A's this year. And they are 45-47 against everybody else. And I understand, again, win's a win. You beat who's in front of you. The Yankees did that over the weekend. They did it against the A's. They've done it. Fine. But I mean, oh my goodness, what are we doing here? Outside of those two teams, the Yankees are a below 500 team. They're a below average baseball team. The amount of money they've poured into this team, it's such a joke what they've turned into. And last night against the New York Mets, a team who's not any good either, coming out of last night's game, they're still 6 games under 500. They lay an egg at home inside Yankee Stadium. The Mets took over Yankee Stadium last night. And an Aaron Boone can go into his press conference and again show zero accountability and say, oh, Herman pitched well. I thought his stuff looked good. I mean, the Yankees were pathetic on so many levels last night. The game wasn't even close. And they had bases loaded late in that game. They had an opportunity when it was 7-3. Ben Rortvedt comes up to pinch hit for Kyle Higashioka. And then Jake Bauers comes up. 2 guys ground out to the infield. And you get out of there, bases loaded, 1 out with 1 run. We've talked about this Yankee team. They don't hit with runners in scoring position. They're overly reliant on the home run ball. And that's it. The Yankees didn't hit a home run last night. And guess what? They didn't hit a home run, so they didn't win. Because when this team hits home runs, they win games. And when they don't win games. And when their pitcher goes out there and lays an egg like he did, well, that too. But the Yankees didn't decide to score until the 7th inning. So even if Herman went out there and gave you 6 strong innings of 2-3 run baseball, the Yankees, there's a good chance they probably would have lost the game anyway because they waited until the 7th inning to finally score when the game was already out of hand. I mean, what a joke. What a joke. And yet Hal Steinbrenner keeps letting Aaron Boone and this coaching staff get away with it, keeps letting Brian Cashman get away with these losses, keeps letting these pathetic performances just slide, and they expect that somehow they're going to wake up one day and everything's going to change and the Yankees are going to be back to the Yankees that they once were. They're not. Last night was another reminder they're not going anywhere. Domingo Germán last night, 6 innings, 7 hits, 6 runs, 6 earned, a walk. He did strike out 9, but allowed 3 home runs. And to 2 guys that went into the game not doing much of anything. Pete Alonso went into last night hitting below 200 in the month of June or the month of July. He had 2 home runs last night, and those weren't just home runs. Those were moonshots. They were rockets that he hit off of Germán last night. And then the other one was off of Daniel Vogelbach. I mean, are you kidding me? You're going to let Daniel Vogelbach go into Yankee Stadium and look like an all-star. You let up a home run to Daniel Vogelbach, who doesn't swing. He's been terrible for the New York Mets. You're going to let up a home run to him. I mean, really? That's what it is. That's how low it's gotten for this Yankee team. Pete Alonso, who went into last night ice cold, 2 home runs. And then you let up a homer to Daniel Vogelbach. I mean, what? And Germán, let's just tell it like it is. The Yankees have got rotation problems, and we've talked about that. Because outside of Garrett Cole, there's questions everywhere. We'll break it down. I broke it down a couple days ago, but we'll break it down again. Domingo Germán. I mean, let's be honest here. The guy has an ERA of 4.77. It's not anything that he had the perfect game against the A's, and outside of that, he hasn't, he struggled. He was good earlier on, and he struggled since. Luis Severino, I understand he's had 2 good outings back-to-back against the Angels and the Royals, but you still don't trust him. He's still got an ERA, I believe it's still north of 6 or just south in the 5s, which is still terrible. I mean, who are we kidding here? He's still terrible. Carlos Rodon, he's had 3 starts as a New York Yankee. 2 of them have been bad, and he's already getting into it with fans. Tonight's a big make-or-break start for Carlos Rodon. If he goes out there tonight and gets dominated, 3 innings, 6 runs, and he's out of there, that looks like $160 million down the drain. I don't care if it's only 4 starts into his Yankee career. If you can't find a way to pitch well against the Rockies, the Angels, without Mike Trout, and the New York Mets, you have problems. You have serious issues. If your first 4 starts as a Yankee are the Cubs, the Rockies, the Angels, and the Mets, 4 teams that haven't been any good this year, and you come out of those 4 starts with an ERA north of 6, and you can't even get through the 3rd inning against the Mets tonight, there's serious issues. I don't care how early it is into his Yankee career. I don't care if he was hurt and if he's still dealing with something. Whatever it is. Maybe I shouldn't go that far. That's not nice. But either way, I don't care how early it is. If you can't pitch against those teams, you've got issues, and that looks like another $160 million right down the drain. It looks like another Cashman pitching investment. Let's just tell like it is, because we've seen a lot of these. Frankie Montes, failure. Sonny Gray, failure. J. Happ, failure. The left field failures. So many issues. Nestor Cortez, he hasn't been very good this year. Went on the IL. Prior to that, he wasn't good. Frankie Montes is lost, is a lost cause at this point. I mean, even if he comes back, he'll be a bullpen guy at best. That's what he, and why would you even want him back in the starting rotation? He stinks. So that's the state of the Yankees rotation. And last night gave you another reminder. You went into this year talking about how this rotation could be one of the best in baseball, and it's been such a disappointment. And the bullpen, I'm sorry, but the bullpen, maybe this is too negative, but the bullpen's not nearly what it was. It is really struggling. And I know it's gotten covered up, but you even go back to that Royals series, the Yankees were winning that game 8-3 going into the 9th. The Royals put up 2 more runs on Ron Marinaccio. Marinaccio has been terrible recently. The bullpen has not been good. You cannot, I know they won against the Royals, but there was a lot of times where the bullpen struggled and got covered up because they were winning. Same thing last night. They got crushed, and we're all hammering Domingo Germán today, and we're all crushing the anemic offense for only having 5 hits and the defense with 2 errors. And I know there were some bloops there and stuff like that, but the bullpen last night let up 3 runs, 2 earned, and Marinaccio let up 2 of those, and he completely put the game out of reach. Marinaccio's ERA is now 4.33. That's bad. And then Albert Abreu comes in and hits 2 batters back-to-back. Back-to-back, he hits 2 guys. I mean, why is Albert Abreu still on this roster? I still don't get that. He hit Vientos and then Alvarez back-to-back. Vientos and Alvarez. He hit those guys back-to-back. So don't let him fool you that he didn't allow a run, because he hit 2 batters back-to-back and he looked terrible. But the Yankees are okay with it. They'll continue to roll him out there. The bullpens looked ugly. It seems to be wearing down. I mean, let's be honest here. The magic of Nick Ramirez and Ian Hamilton and Ron Marinaccio, are those guys really high-end relievers in the MLB? I mean, Marinaccio has been very good in his Yankee career, but he's been very bad recently. It seems like the magic's wearing down. Just the fact that you go into last night's game against a Mets team that was 47-53, and you get hammered the way you did in your home building, it's just terrible. And I mean, let's take a look. Let's take a look at the top hitters for the Yankees. You take a look at the top 4 hitters. There was 1 hit on all of them, for all of them. Bowers 0 for 5, 2 strikeouts. Glaber had the 1 hit, went 1 for 4. Stanton 0 for 2. He had an RBI, 2 walks. Rizzo, he had the 1 sac fly. It was a hard hit ball, sac fly, okay, he got an RBI. But then Rizzo 0 for 5, 2 strikeouts. So Rizzo, after going 4 for 4 against the Royals, can't follow it up with anything consistent and goes 0 for 5 last night. So your top 4 hitters combined had 1 hit and 1 RBI. That's not good enough. 1 hit is not good enough between your top 4 hitters. I don't care who you're rolling out, whether or not Judge is in that top 4 or not. You've got to be better. And guys like Stanton and Rizzo have got to be better. They can't go 0 for 7 combined in the Subway Series in a big game. The Yankees are paying those guys a lot of money. They're not paying them that amount of money to go 0 for 7, to go 0 for 8 combined. So, It was the bottom of the order. Bader with a hit. Billy McKinney had a hit. Isaiah Connor-Fleff had a hit. Volpe had a hit. It was the bottom of the order doing the damage. The Yankees had 5 hits last night. 4 of them came from the bottom 4 or 5 hitters, and 1 of them came from the top 4. That doesn't add up. That doesn't add up. So, 53 and 48 now. When you look at it from a division standpoint, so the Yankees are now 9 games back. They're 4 and 6 in their last 10. They're now 2.5 back of a wild card. The Red Sox have officially jumped them, and the Red Sox are hot right now. They're a 3-game win streak, 6 and 4 in the last 10. I'll tell you this, looking at the standings today in the wild card just show you the even less of a chance that the Yankees have to make the playoffs. Because when you look at it, the Blue Jays right now, 56 and 46. The Astros are plus 2 games up. The Rays are plus 5. So there's really only one spot left for that final wild card spot. And there's, on the outside, there's probably 2 realistic teams fighting for it, the Red Sox and the Yankees, and then even the Angels. I mean, the Angels are 3.5 back. The Angels are 7 and 3 in the last 10. They're actually playing well without Mike Trout. They are, surprisingly. They're 52 and 49. They're only a game back of the Yankees. So realistically, 2 days from now, if the Yankees lose today and then lose game 1 against the Orioles, which is highly likely because the Yankees stink, right? And Clark Schmidt will be on the mound for game 1 of that Orioles series, which, again, Clark Schmidt hasn't been necessarily bad recently, but still. There's a good chance the Yankees lose the series against the Orioles. There's a good chance they lose tonight. There really is. I said both teams would split, but, I mean, after watching last night, what gives you any type of confidence that Rodon's going to go out there tonight and throw a gem? And what gives you confidence that this offense is going to go out there tonight and hit? Like, wait, what? Like, oh, great, we hit against the Royals. Anybody can hit against the Royals. But realistically, though, there's a good chance that in 3 days from now, the Yankees are the 3rd team back in the wild card race. It's going to be the Red Sox, it's going to be the Angels, and it's going to be the Yankees. There's a really good chance. Because guess who's the Angels are playing right now? They're playing the Tigers. They won last night. There's a good chance they sweep the Tigers. There's a good chance the Yankees lose tonight. If that happens, the Angels jump the Yankees. Now, after that, the Angels' schedule does get rough. They've got the Blue Jays, they've got the Braves, they've got the Mariners, they've got the Giants, they've got the Astros. So their series gets rough after that. Their schedule gets rough after that, but so does the Yankees. They've got the Orioles, they've got the Rays, they've got the Astros. I mean, there's a good chance that we're looking at it that the Yankees could be 4 games out of a wild card spot by next week. And that's where it gets really dangerous. 4 games, 5 games, that's when it starts to get out of hand. They're still within the 2-game range, but there's no confidence on this. There's no confidence. I don't know how somebody can have confidence in this team without Aaron Judge to turn this thing around. And again, even when Judge comes back, even when he comes back, okay, great. Judge is back. Good. Perfect. You know, we haven't won anything when he's in the lineup, and that's not against Judge. That's against this front office for building this piece of garbage. So when Judge comes back, there's still so many other holes. You know, maybe Rizzo gets going, maybe because the pitcher's got to pitch those guys and stuff like that, but okay, well, what if Stan and Rizzo still can't hit even when Judge comes back? It's one guy. There's 8 other guys on there that also got to produce. One guy's not going to do the job. We've seen that. Fine, the Yankees might go out and okay, maybe they'll get another guy in the rotation, maybe they'll add another bullpen arm, maybe they'll add another left fielder or catcher. Okay, but what gives you the confidence in Brian Cashman that he's going to go out there and hit gold at the trade deadline? Because what has Cashman done at the trade deadline within the last 3 years that has significantly helped? Remember, the meaning of the trade deadline is to help you get you over the finish line or get you to where you want to be by the end of the year. For teams that are buying, it's that final little push, that final little roster addition to get you over the top, whether it's a World Series, whether it's a playoff berth, whatever it is, winning a division, whatever it is. Most teams that buy at the deadline, it's to get you into the postseason. Or if you're already into the postseason, it's to add a little bit more to maybe get to that World Series. Win the World Series or win the division, right? Whatever it is. And for teams to sell, a lot of teams feel, all right, trade deadline, good opportunity to get a head start, to build up the farm system, and then to build up the farm system more in the offseason. What is the Yankees what have the Yankees done at the trade deadline the past couple of seasons that have significantly helped them get over the top? Nothing. Joey Gallo did nothing for us. Josh Donaldson not trade deadline. What am I talking about? Sonny Gray did nothing for us. I'm going back a little bit now. J Happ did nothing for us. Frankie Montes, probably the worst of those three, has done nothing for us. Andrew Benintendi, literally, Frankie Montes has done nothing for us. Quite literally. He actually hasn't. He's pitched, 8 games as a New York Yankee? And he was hurt, and now he's, and the Yankees knew about that injury too. And they still thought they were, we're smarter than everybody else. We're going to let Luis Castillo option 1 go. We're going to bring in Frankie Montes, even though we know his injury history, and we're just going to watch this thing go up in flames. And that's what happened. Andrew Benintendi. He was here, got hurt, gone in the offseason. Still no left fielder. All right, so great. You can go out and get Cody Bellinger, or somebody like that, but you just know it's going to fail. You just know it's probably going to blow up in your face, because that's just what happens with this Yankee team. That's what happens with Brian Cashman. He signs these guys, or he settles for option 2 or settles for option 3, try to get you to buy in, and it doesn't work. Scott Efros, Tommy John, Lou Trevino, hurt. It's ridiculous. It's pathetic. It is absolutely pathetic. So, Yankees lose, Mets win. Good win for the Mets. And look, I still don't think the Mets are going to make the playoffs. I don't. But they do have a spot in their schedule coming up where they could make a little bit of wins. They could make up some ground, and I talked about that yesterday. They've got one more tonight against the Yankees, obviously. We'll see whatever happens. I'm so defeated. I just feel like there's no chance Rodon does anything tonight. I want to sit here and feel confident, and maybe he goes out there and embraces the big moment and gives us 7 shutout innings and is like, yeah, right? I don't know. Maybe he does that. Maybe he doesn't. Whatever it is. Either way, I'm expecting the worst. So if Rodon goes, I guess I can't be disappointed tonight because I'm already expecting it. So if it comes, it's not going to become by a surprise. But from a Mets perspective, they get the win last night, obviously. So they're 47-53 now. 17.5 back in a division, which doesn't matter really anymore because they're way out of the division. The division race has been gone for a while. And they're still 7 back in the wild card. So they didn't really make anything up in the wild card. They're still 7 games back there. But the Mets, as I mentioned, they do have a soft spot in their schedule coming up. After tonight's game, they'll have 4 against the Nationals, and then they'll have 3 against the Royals. So they'll have 7 games coming up after tonight's game where you probably should at least go 7-5. You assume you probably, or 5-2 rather. At least you take 2 or 3. You probably sweep the Royals and take 3 or 4 against the Nationals. At the very least, right? The Nationals, it's a 4-game set. Nationals are better than the Royals. The Nationals will probably maybe find a way to win one of those games. So you take 3 or 4 against them, and then you sweep the Royals, which anybody could sweep the Royals. Now they're 29-74. They're just as bad as the Oakland A's. So you go 5-2, or not 5-2. It'd be 6-1 actually if you do sweep the Royals. But all right, let's just say you take 2 or 3 against the Royals, take 3 or 4 against the Nationals. You're 5-2. Realistically, you can go 6-1. You get back a little bit, but then after that, you get the Orioles. We're going to be tough. Cubs are winnable. Braves will be tough. Then you get the Pirates, and you get the Cardinals later on, then you get the Braves later on. So the month of August is interesting for the Mets because there's definitely soft spots in the schedule. One thing with the Mets, though, they haven't done a good job beating the bad teams. They haven't. They've done a really poor job of beating bad teams. They couldn't take care of business. We've talked about this a lot. Couldn't take care of business of the Padres earlier on this month. You go back to the month of June where they lost series to the Pirates. They lost series to the Cardinals. They lost series to, we remember going back the Rockies. That's going back to May. They've done a really bad job of beating the bad teams. They haven't been able to do it. So if they want to try and turn their season around, if they want to try and make it somewhat competitive going into the trade deadline next week, they've got to probably find a way. You win tonight, find a way to take 3 or 4 against the Nationals, and at least put yourself in a position to maybe buy at the deadline, to maybe reinforce at the deadline, whatever it is. But either way, last night's win was good for the Mets. They've got 8 games coming up that are winnable. Tonight's game's winnable. And then you got the 4 against the Nationals, 3 against the Royals. I still don't think they're going to make the playoffs. But if there's a time for the Mets to try and turn this thing around, at least get within 4 or 5 games maybe, it is now. Because you get 7 games against 2 teams that are well below 500 in the Nationals, who are 42-59, And the Royals, who are, 29-74, they're so bad. They are 29-74. They're a game better than the A's. So that's all you need to know about the Kansas City Royals. So we'll see. All right, so now we'll move on here to a little bit of football. Rodon Quintana tonight, obviously, for the Yankees and the Mets. Thank goodness training camp starting because I'm a loyal Yankee fan. Everyone, diehard Yankee fan, you're going to go fight through it, through the good times and the bad. You hope that it makes hopefully the 28th championship, whenever that comes, much sweeter. I don't think it's coming this year. I wouldn't be surprised if it doesn't come within the next 2 years until Cashman and Booner contracts are up, because that's maybe the only time they'll move on from. I don't know when the heck this Yankee organization will turn things around and realize that their way of doing things is expired and just outdated, and they're not the smartest ones anymore because they still think they're smarter than everybody else, and their plan doesn't work anymore. Until they realize that, the Yankees aren't sniffing a championship. And their closest they'll get is getting to the ALCS, and they'll probably get swept again because they love getting crushed in the ALCS. But anyway, we move on to football. Yesterday and into this morning was a very successful day for the 2020 NFL draft class. First, you heard that Justin Herbert signed a big-time, massive extension with the Chargers, and then this morning we heard from the Giants, Joe Shane and company, making moves there. They have extended Andrew Thomas to a massive, massive extension as well. So quickly here on the Chargers and Justin Herbert agreement. It is a 5-year, $262.5 million extension. It'll tie him to the franchise through the 2029 season. The deal obviously gets done before the first training camp practice today. So that was the first move that happened. The second one came locally in New York with the New York Giants. Andrew Thomas, left tackle, 2020 draft pick, 4th overall, gets a massive, massive extension, 5-year deal, $117.5 million, $67 million guaranteed, and he'll also be tied to the New York Giants through 2029. And we'll start with the Andrew Thomas extension, and then we'll touch upon the Justin Herbert extension later on. This is a big deal for the Giants, and this is the second of 2 deals back-to-back days for the Giants, and actually third of 3 big deals for the Giants that Joe Shane and company have made this offseason. You obviously had the Saquon Barkley contract yesterday where they got the deal done. They got it ironed out a day that they report to camp and a day before their first training camp practice today. And then now today, the first training camp practice, you get the massive deal done with Andrew Thomas. Couple other big moves that have happened for the New York Giants this offseason. The Daniel Jones extension, 4 years, $160 million. And then the Dexter Lawrence extension, one of the better defensive tackles in the NFL, 4 years, $90 million. So it has been a very, very successful and high money type offseason for both the Giants, and throw the Jets in there as well. They gave Quinnen Williams the big extension. They went out and got Aaron Rodgers. For the Giants, they went out and got Darren Waller, was their big pickup, and they gave extensions to Daniel Jones. They gave extensions to Dexter Lawrence, and obviously most recently here with Andrew Thomas, and they got the contract situation ironed out with Saquon Barkley, which is questionable on Saquon Barkley's side of things, but either way, they got the deal done. He'll play for the Giants this season, and that's all that matters right now for the New York Football Giants. And the Andrew Thomas deal, again, we'll start with that. Very, very good move for the Giants. If you remember going back here a little bit, when the Giants drafted Andrew Thomas, his rookie season was terrible. And before we even get into that, you start with the Giants have a common theme. Keeping homegrown talent, keeping them. Like extending homegrown talent, keeping them around has been one of Joe Shane's most prideful, common thing that he's done in terms of keeping Andrew Thomas, homegrown talent, keeping him around. Daniel Jones, homegrown talent, keeping him around. Dexter Lawrence, homegrown talent, keeping him around. Saquon Barkley, you don't really throw him into that category, but they at least got something done where they're going to keep him around for another season. There wasn't any rift between him and the coaching staff. He didn't hold out. He's there today at camp, and he'll be ready for the regular season. So you got that done. Whatever his future is, whether or not this is it for him. Whether or not we go through the same situation next year, that's all stuff you'll talk about down the road. Your focus now is training camp and what you can do for the 2023-2024 regular season. But Joe Schoen wraps up what was a very successful offseason. And when you go back to the Andrew Thomas draft, there was a ton of tackles taken in that draft class. A ton of them. And Andrew Thomas was one of the guys that I will admit, I wrote him off after year one. I did. I completely thought he was done. I thought he was a bust. I didn't believe in him after year one. He was so bad his rookie season. I mean, it was pathetic. He was terrible in his rookie season that I thought he was done. I thought he was just a bust. That's how bad he was. But you've got to give a lot of credit to Andrew Thomas because whatever he learned from year one, he has taken that, and each year he's gotten better, and he's legitimately turned into a cornerstone for this Giants franchise. You have him and Evan Neal now at the two tackle spots. I know Evan Neal struggled a little bit last year, but in Andrew Thomas's case, you assume he probably gets better because Andrew Thomas got better if they follow along the same line. But you look at this Giants offensive line now, there are three young pieces. John Michael Schmitz at the center spot, and your two tackles, Andrew Thomas and Evan Neal. Those three guys turn out to be what we expected them to do. And obviously, Andrew Thomas has already turned out to be a very good, proven tackle in the NFL. But if those two other guys turn out, JMS and Evan Neal, Daniel Jones and the New York Giants will have a lot of protection up front for a very long time. Throw Saquon Barkley in there with running lanes. Andrew Thomas has turned into one of the better pass protectors in the NFL. He was so bad his rookie year. Terrible. One of the worst offensive linemen in football when you look at across the board in terms of analytics and what he did in terms of pressure, sacks allowed, all that stuff. Was one of the worst in football. Was getting beat off the line every play. Was just getting crushed. 3 years later, he has turned into one of the best tackles and one of the best offensive linemen in football. And give a lot of credit where credit's due. He earned every bit of this 5-year, $117.5 million contract. And if you look back at that 2020 draft class now, specifically the tackles from that 2020 NFL draft class, the COVID draft, would you look back on it, it's kind of weird because there was a lot of, there was good talent that came out of there, but it's funny when you look back on it, how it was COVID draft class. You could tell that maybe some of the scouting wasn't quite accurate because there was a lot of guys that were taken in that draft, and that's every draft, but there was a lot of guys that were taken that just never panned out. There were some that obviously did pan out. Justin Herbert's one of them, which we'll get to here in a second. Andrew Thomas, another one. But when you look back at that draft class for the 2020 NFL draft, Andrew Thomas was the first tackle taken, 4th overall by the Giants. Jedrick Wills was taken 10th overall by the Cleveland Browns. Mekhi Becton obviously taken 11th overall by the Giants, or the Jets, obviously the Jets. Tristan Wirfs taken 13th overall by the Buccaneers. Austin Jackson taken 18th overall by the Dolphins. And Isaiah Wilson taken 29th overall by the Titans. He was suspended. He's a free agent. He's already suspended this year. Some undisclosed reasons. He's not even with a team anymore, so he hasn't panned out. Andrew Thomas has. Jedrick Wills has been good. Mekhi Becton hasn't panned out. Tristan Wirfs, all right. Austin Jackson, those are two other guys. But the big one is Andrew Thomas. You look at that draft class, and after year one, how bad Andrew Thomas was and how good Tristan Wirfs and Jedrick Wills and Mekhi Becton were, you thought, man, Andrew Thomas is going to be the big bust out of this draft class. There was Giants fans after year one with Mekhi Becton saying to themselves, oh, man, we should have took Becton, or Becton should have been higher. Andrew Thomas shouldn't even be drafted. Right? That's how bad it was. He has now turned out, hands down, there's really no debate. If you want to make a debate, you can maybe debate Jedrick Wills, and also just because of how good the Browns offensive line is, he's a part of it. But really, it comes down to Andrew Thomas. Out of the 6 guys taken, Andrew Thomas included, he's been the best tackle draft pick out of that 2020 draft class. After such a poor rookie year, he's figured it out, and he's one of the best offensive linemen in the entire NFL. And what's most important, he's protecting Daniel Jones' blind side. So Joe Shane hits another home run. That's his third massive contract this offseason. When you look at some of the analytics for Andrew Thomas, he was most valuable player per PFF WAR last season. And he had an 89.1 PFF grade, which is very good, especially at the offensive line spot. He's reliable. He plays the games. He's out there for pretty much every snap. This is the guy that the Giants, he felt, needed a lockup eventually. They do. They lock up a cornerstone along with Daniel Jones and Dexter Lawrence. And Joe Shane put a bow on what was a very successful offseason for the New York Giants. And today, obviously, being their first practice, they get those deals done. So now we move on here to the Chargers, go off to the West Coast, where they also got a deal done with Justin Herbert. And this obviously actually happened first before the Andrew Thomas deal. But Justin Herbert gets a big-time contract. As I mentioned, it is a 5-year deal, $262.5 million. It gets him through the 2029 season. He is now the third quarterback this offseason to sign a market-resetting 5-year contract extension. These are all according to Adam Schefter. Jalen Hurts was the first one with a 5-year, $255 million. Lamar Jackson was the second one with the 5-year, $260 million. Now Justin Herbert, and you assume Joe Burrow's next. So quarterbacks continue to get paid. And I talked about this the other day when I did my top 5 quarterbacks in the NFL. Herbert was right up there in terms of top 5 quarterbacks. He's one of the best in football right now. He's got a ton of talent. He had 4,739 yards last season. That was second in the NFL. 25 touchdowns. That was tied for 8th in the NFL. 10 interceptions. A QBR of 58.2. That was 11th in the NFL. And a completion percentage of 68.2. That was 3rd in the NFL. So some of the most important statistical categories, Justin Herbert was top 5 in. He was 3rd in completion percentage. 2nd in yards. Tied for 8th in touchdown. So it was right up there near the top of the league in some of the important statistical categories. He's right up there with the Jalen Hurts, the Josh Allens, Joe Burrows, and Patrick Mahomes of the world in terms of top 5. He gets paid like a top 5 quarterback. He is a top 5 quarterback. Also, a very good move here for the Chargers. And you look at some of these other numbers. Through 3 seasons, Justin Herbert has 14,089 passing yards, most through players' first 3 seasons in NFL history. He has 94 passing touchdowns, second most through first 3 seasons in NFL history. Dan Marino has the most with 98. And another number to throw at you, 64 total QBR, 4th best in NFL since his rookie season in 2020. The biggest thing now for Justin Herbert is that postseason success. And last year wasn't necessarily his fault with the postseason in terms of losing that game to the Jaguars, blowing that big lead. A lot of it was Brandon Staley. And the biggest question with this Chargers team, because they've got talent. They've got all the talent in the world. They've got Eckler at running back, who's right. He's top 5, borderline top 5 running back in football. They've got Keenan Allen. They've got Mike Williams, Quentin Johnston, Gerald Everett. They've got Rashawn Slater, who is their draft pick out of Northwestern, missed last season, most of last year. He returns this year. So you're going to have his blind side at left tackle back. We talk about Andrew Thomas being one of the better left tackles. Rashawn Slater in his rookie year was one of the better ones as well. You add Kellen Moore, offensive coordinator. We'll see how that all fits. Obviously, formerly with the Cowboys, had some success there. They've got all the talent in the world. It comes down to the coaching for the Chargers. They've got the quarterback. They've got the running back. They've got the offensive line. They got a good, solid defense. And they've got a good tight end. And they got good skill positions. I should just say skill. You just got good skill positions, right? I know Keenan Allen health. There are some health there. But this is one of the more talented offensive rosters in football. One of the more better weapons. He has some of the best weapons in football. Got the tight end and got the 2 top receivers in Mike Williams and Keenan Allen. And we know what Keenan Allen can do when he's healthy. He's one of the better. He can be top 7, top 8 receiver in football when he's healthy. And him and Justin Herbert have had that chemistry. The biggest thing is for Herbert to have that postseason success. But a lot of that comes down to his coach. A lot of it comes down to Brandon Staley, who really had no experience prior to last year, blew that game, got out-coached by Doug Peterson, who had experience, has won a Super Bowl. He's got to learn from that, and now this is a big season. In a stacked AFC, you've got Herbert getting a big contract, And again, very smart from the Chargers side of things because Herbert, very good quarterback, top 5 in football. I have him at number 5 on my list, as I made a couple weeks ago. Mahomes, Burrow, Allen, Hurts, Herbert. That's my top 5 from 1 to 5. In a league where it's so quarterback-driven, to lock him up through 2029 is extremely smart by the front office, although they would be stupid to not do that. And now he's a stacked AFC, will be stacked for a little bit longer. Joe Burrow is waiting for an extension. He'll get one. You've already got big extensions for Mahomes. Mahomes is there. Rodgers is now involved. Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow. The quarterbacks in the AFC are loaded. And this is the latest of a top quarterback extension for Justin Herbert. So we'll see what they can do. It's crazy. I saw a stat yesterday. I saw somebody do that. I saw this thing the other day, or months ago, actually. So out of Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, Josh Allen, Aaron Rodgers, Lamar Jackson, I'm missing somebody probably. Oh, Tua, and who else? I feel like I'm missing somebody. Oh, Deshaun Watson. And I guess you could throw Russell Wilson in there. But Russell Wilson, out of those 8-9 quarterbacks, 2 of them won't be in the playoffs. Which is just crazy to me to think. Like, out of all that talent that all these guys have, there's going to be a guy that's going to miss the postseason. It's just going to be shocking. I don't technically necessarily consider, what's his face? Russell Wilson very good. But when you look at it, so Tua, Josh Allen, Aaron Rodgers, Joe Burrow, Deshaun Watson, Lamar Jackson. And then you got Trevor Lawrence, Justin Herbert, Patrick Mahomes. 9 guys. Out of those 9, 2 of them are not going to be in the postseason, which is crazy. Out of Rodgers, Allen, Tua, Burrow, Deshaun Watson, Trevor Lawrence, Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert. Actually, that's 8. Whatever. 8 guys. Out of those 9 guys, 2 of them won't make it. 2 of them won't be in the playoffs this year. Or 1 or 2 of them won't be. That's just wild. Like, there's potential that Trevor Lawrence and, let's just say, Lamar Jackson aren't in the playoffs this year. Which is just crazy. All the talent. But that just shows you how stacked the AFC is. Now, you can pretty much automatically say the Bengals will be in the playoffs. The Chiefs will be in the playoffs. I assume the Chargers will probably be in. Bills, call me biased. I'm very confident the Jets are going to get into the playoffs this year. So those are your 5 teams. Then it comes down to the Ravens, comes down to the Dolphins with Tua, because I'm not very confident that they'll get in personally. Then it comes down to the Jaguars. It's going to come down to those 3 teams for those final 2 spots. Personally, if I had to guess, if I had to just guess and assume. Now, the thing that comes down with the Jaguars that's pretty beneficial is they're probably going to win their division. So they'll get in because they're going to probably win their division. So they'll automatically get in because you get an automatic bid if you win a division. I mean, let's be honest here. Are we really going to see the Titans and Malik Willis? Like, who cares? The Titans got DeAndre Hopkins. Great. Who's going to throw? Who's going to be throwing to him? Colts aren't. Colts are rebuilding. The Texans are on the right path, but they're rebuilding. And then obviously you've got the Jaguars. So Jaguars are probably going to come away and win that division. When you look at the AFC West, the Raiders are probably going to be. I don't know. I don't know if I want to call them a dumpster fire, but they're not going to be a playoff team. They'll probably be maybe a 6-7 win team. I wouldn't necessarily say they're going to be a dumpster fire. They're not going to win. I don't think they're going to be like a 4-win team. But I think they'll probably win 6-7 games, maybe 8. I don't know. They'll be competitive. I mean, Jimmy G's not terrible, but the biggest issue is health. If he can't stay healthy, then maybe they'll be a disaster. There's certainly a chance. They've got the whole Josh Jacobs situation, so Josh McDaniels isn't a good coach. Maybe they will be a dumpster fire. I don't know. The Raiders won't be a playoff team. I don't believe in the Broncos. You got the Chiefs, you got the Chargers, so those will be 2 teams. When you look at the AFC North, I know there's a lot of people that are buying into the AFC North is interesting because if Deshaun Watson's right, then like there's a chance. If Deshaun Watson's right, like those are the 9 quarterbacks, there's a chance they can get in. The Browns. There's a chance. I mean, they got a very good offensive line. They go on one of the best running backs in football in Nick Chubb. They've got a very solid defense. There is a chance. I don't know, but we'll see. Anyway, that'll do it for the podcast here today. As I mentioned, Yankees, Mets tonight. Carlos Rodon, Jose Quintana. So we'll see what he can do. We'll also continue to follow both the Jets and the Giants practices today. Giants over at Quest Diagnostics in East Rutherford, New Jersey, right across from MetLife. And the Jets over in Florham Park, New Jersey, at their really nice facility. I'll actually be at Jets training camp tomorrow. So if any of you are there and want to stop by and say, hey, definitely do that. We'll really appreciate all that, all the support. So, I'll be at Jets training camp tomorrow. And then, obviously, so I'll try to get a video up tomorrow at some point. Some time we'll try and get something up there. Maybe a live stream recapping practice. But obviously, first day of Giants practice, and obviously Jets, their sixth day of practice today. Yesterday was the first with pads on. So that'll do it for an episode of the Bubbs on Sports podcast. As always, I'll see you all back here tomorrow. Hope you enjoyed it, and thanks for watching.